with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waring was unable to attend tonight, but he's with us in spirit, and we will miss him in the meanwhile. First up, Commissioner, we have our minutes. Move to discuss. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Up next is the calendar. Any discussion? Nor do I. On to previously signed documents.
Move approval.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Up next, we have our 2022 fiscal year audit review. Melissa Samard is here from the Melanson Group. Melissa, how are you? Nice to see you.
How are you?
Welcome. We're well, thank you.
Thank you for having me here tonight to go over the results of your fiscal year 2021 audit. I first off want to say thank you to Deborah and to Lori and all of the Belknap County staff for their assistance during the audit. Audit went very smoothly. I am going to go over the highlights of your financial statements, which is the quite thick bound document you should have in front of you. As I go through the financial statement, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask. So just after the table of contents is the independent auditor's report. Melanson was hired to provide an opinion on your financial statement. And while we assisted in the preparation of these financial statements, it's important to note that the financial statements belong to the county. Only pages 1 through 3 belong to Melanson. Now, if you were to compare this independent auditor's report to, say, your 2020 auditor's report, you'll notice some differences. Recent auditing standards made changes to the independent auditor's report to add visibility to users of the financial statements and to provide transparency in the basis for auditor's opinion and responsibilities of management auditor. These are not new concepts. They've always been dictated by generally accepted auditing standards, which are the ones that we have to follow. They're just now required to be specifically stated. So the first paragraph in the independent auditor's report is the opinion paragraph. It's now added right up front to the first paragraph, as it's viewed by some as the most important. The county received a clean or unmodified opinion on your financial statements. And that means that we believe your financial statements to be materially fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Essentially the best opinion that we can get. Beyond the opinions section, it talks about the basis for opinions, and that sets the expectations for the auditor's report. It says that we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. It also talks about how we are required to be independent of the county. We have to meet other ethical responsibilities, and then we have to provide enough audit evidence to provide a basis for that. On to the second page, it talks about management's responsibilities, and that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Management is also responsible for having an effective system of internal control over the preparation and presentation of financial statements. That second paragraph in the responsibilities of management section talks about going concern. Now, this is a new paragraph within the independent auditor's report, and it states that management is required to evaluate conditions or events that may raise doubts about the county's ability to continue as a going concern. So this paragraph will be present in any independent auditor's report. If there was an issue, there would be an additional paragraph. So it's not something to be alarmed. The auditor's responsibility talks about that we are required to have obtain reasonable assurance over the financial statements. And reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but not absolute assurance. It means that we don't look at everything. Further down in that section, it talks about what we do in performing an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. These are not new concepts, as I stated before, they're just now required to be specifically stated. And one important thing to highlight in this section is that we obtain an understanding of your internal control for purposes of designing our audit procedures, but we're not providing an opinion on your internal controls. Jumping to page 4 is where we begin the management's discussion and analysis, and that spans pages 4 through 10. It provides an overview of the financial statements, allows management to explain any changes in the financial statements. So I'm going to jump to in that section, page 8. At the bottom of the page, it talks about your unassigned fund balance. And as of December 31st, 2021, you have an unassigned fund balance of $1,743,211. As you can see in that table, fund balance went down about $664,000 in comparison to 2020. This is something I just wanted to draw your attention to and keep an eye on it, because when I was looking at 2019's fund balance, 2018's unassigned fund balance, it can start to see a trend going downward. So in 2019, it was at 3.1 million. 2018 at 2 million. So it went up slightly in 2019. Let's start to go up a bit. So just something to keep an eye on. And I know the county does have a fund balance policy where it states that you're striving to maintain 3.5 to 5 million of unassigned fund balance. So just be cognizant of that and be aware of that. You don't want that to go down.
I could add at this point, we are constantly aware of it, but we do not have control. I'm sure you understand.
Yes, I do.
Melissa, let me interrupt you just for a moment.
Sure.
In your observations, is there a high water mark you would like to see and a low water mark you definitely not want to see in terms of these numbers?
In terms of these numbers, well, just to kind of put things in a little bit perspective, DRA recommends 5 to 10% of general fund expenditures, and as you can see that you're at 6.1, so you're not quite at that tail end of 5%. And then GFOA, the Government's Finance Officers Association, recommends no less than 2 months of general fund expenditures, and that's at about 4.5 million. So you have to kind of take all of these recommendations into consideration to determine, and then apply that to your county situation. So I would be concerned if it went below $1 million. Definitely concerned at that point, but just give you some metrics.
So we're going to be working on the budget next month. And then we'll be presenting that budget before a partial new delegation here in Belmont. And are you okay with the commissioners making representation that's been recommended to us by Melanson after careful study that the fund balance in Belmont County should never really dip below $2 million if at all preventable?
I would say that is a good benchmark figure of $2.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just again, to kind of add on to that, in your budgeting that use of fund balance, it was $3 million that was used for 2021, which was a big increase from 2020. So I'm sure you know when you're going through the budget process and the impact on taxation, another thing to be aware of how much you are using, how it can impact your tax.
So do you think we should change the county's, the commissioner's policy is that they will keep 3.5 to 5 million on hand in unassigned fund balance?
I mean, I'm not going, Melanson is not in a position to tell the county what their policy should be. If we were concerned that it was too low, like below the 2 million, we would definitely have that conversation. 3.5 is something to describe.
Right, that's what I'm just trying to make that point, that you have a good sound policy already. That was carefully reviewed, looking at what DRA recommends municipalities, towns, and cities do, and looking at GFOA and our history. So I just want to make sure you are so confident in the county policy that says 3.5 to 5 million. I still think that is the right place for us to try to be and stay.
I think it's fair to say the movies, when they've given us bond rating. Stinks being like the heat and less than 3. And the scan says,
Yeah, they don't like to see it going down.
Jumping to page 11 is where we begin the numbers pages of the financial statements. You have the statement of net position. This is the first presentation that Governmental Accounting Standards Board requires for governmental financial statements. This is commonly referred to as the government-wide or the full accrual long-term perspective. It includes all long-term items of the county. You have capital assets, your net pension liability, OPEB liability, long-term debt. I'm not gonna spend too much time on that page. The second page, after that, another long-term perspective, you have the statement of activities that matches your expenditures with your revenues on a functional level. Really a good page to jump to and to talk about is page 13. This is your balance sheet. This is the second presentation required by Governmental Accounting Standards Boards, which is more of a short-term perspective. Doesn't include any of those long-term items, capital assets, debt, net pension, and OPEB liability. You can see there are 4 columns here. You have your general fund, your ARPA fund, which is a new fund for the county this year, and then your non-major governmental funds. For the, as of December 31st, 2021, you have an unassigned fund balance of, again, that 1,743,211. That's that third line up from the bottom. Your ARPA fund includes pretty much what it says right there. It's on your ARPA money that was received, and you have in the liabilities section 4.8 million of ARPA funds that were received, but they have not yet met the spending criteria to be recognized as revenue. Is it expected that in 2022 some of that money is spent down? Funds received. Page 15 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And again, the 3 columns, your general fund, ARPA fund, and your non-major governmental funds. And for the year ended December 31st, 2021, you had a negative change in fund balance of minus 1,542,120. And when we get to the budget versus actual page, which is further in the document, you can see that you had budgeted 3 million unassigned fund balance to help with as used as a funding source. And on page 17, you have your fiduciary funds, which include your private purpose trust funds and custodial funds. Custodial funds were new in 2020 and shows monies that is collected by the county, but that the county does not have control over the spending of the resources. So that includes your nursing home residence funds, your inmate funds, and then all the registry and fees collected for the state. So it's like the county's acting as an agent. And starting on page 19, you have your notes to the financial statements, which provides all the details behind those numbers pages, and it spans from pages 19 to 40. But I'm going to jump to the budget versus actual page, which is on page 54. You can see that you have the general fund and then the ARPA fund. There's showing the supplemental appropriation to authorize the spending of those ARPA funds during 2021, just under 1.4 million. And at the bottom of the page, you can see in the actual amount column where you had used how much of that $3 million unassigned use of fund balance was used to. Any other questions on the financial statements? Okay. As part of our audit, we had, so the financial statements that I just went over, there's also the governance letter, which is required communication to those charged with governance addressed to the board. Talks about our responsibility during the audit, ethics requirements, significant accounting estimates, if there was any management letter, which I'm happy to report that there was no management letter issued for 2021. If there was a management letter, it would be referred to in this document. There is also a single audit report, which is something that we are still working on, and that single audit is required because you expended more than $750,000 in federal funds. So all that CARES Act, COVID, ARPA money that the county had received had pushed the county to meeting the single audit. That's still in process. One other thing I just wanted to point out for 2022, there is a new GASB statement that is effective, GASB statement 87 for leases. And that is, the intent of that is to approve the accounting and financial reporting of leases. All the leases will now be presented on your statement of net position, which is that first number of pages of your financial statement. So I know I've talked to Deborah and Lori about preparing for that and doing a gathering all leases to that the county has, so that way we can fully implement that for I think December 31st. Have any questions?
So Melissa, it appears that you've been very thorough in this approaching the preparation. Thank you for that. It also appears that the staff here, administration, finance, are doing business as business is done and should be done in terms of county government. Do you see any potential trouble on the horizon for us financially as far as the way we run our books, as far as the way we manage our finances? I know you mentioned a lower fund balance than you'd like to see. Is there anything else that causes you some concern that we should be paying special attention to?
No, there is no other concern. If we did have any other concern, we would have that management letter that would report those internal control weaknesses or something like that, which we don't have.
So this is a thing going
This
on.
is a
I would just say, I would like to give a little credit to our finance director. Because it's not easy. We haven't always had a perfectly clean audit with no management letter. There's been many years when we have had management letters. So I think it's worth noting that it doesn't just happen by itself.
We appreciate this. This is attested to that. Certainly the board made mention of the fact that the new business should be, so thank you, Laura. Ms. Sharp. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Commissioner, do we have other business?
No,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I skipped.
a major business.
Superintendent, how could I overlook you? I'm sorry, we have important business. Deborah.
The superintendent and I were asked at the last meeting, I think, to try to figure out a plan that we thought would help with staff retention and recruitment. And we have done that. I have circulated some numbers to you with wage increases for every corrections officer, corporal, sergeant, and lieutenant, that we feel will accomplish or at least help to make our staff feel valued and want to stay here, and will hopefully help us recruit new people, fill the vacancies that currently exist.
So I know that Commissioner Waring is not here, but I do recall in our last meeting, the commissioners agreed that situation is becoming urgent, and that's something we've done. I do believe, Commissioner Taylor, we're discussing pay raises, again, you know, $4 to $5. Do I call that correctly?
I think so. Seems to me that what we're doing, it's probably something that should have been done long ago. Yeah, I think that, what's being done by staff and corrections, is certainly deserving of recent scrutiny.
I know that when department has come before the board, one of the frequently asked questions by the commissioners is, what are your peers doing in other counties? In 9 other counties, as far as the 9 other county jails, if they haven't implemented pay raises, I'm sure they're in the process, and so I'd be surprised if they were otherwise. Deborah, how do you want to proceed with this? You know, the Glenn's not here.
I would like the board to approve this proposal so that I can contact the delegation tomorrow morning and request that they schedule a meeting to approve the cost items, because this will require an increase to the union's contract.
I am going to move that we approve this, so you can make the president's delegation. And I will just reiterate that it's our opinion and memory that Commissioner Waring and Gloria here would be appropriate in the discussion.
If I might add, I think actually what Lynn said is, the proposal, we have to do what has to be done. I think that this proposal is what has to be done, and should be done. So I second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Deborah, let us know how you do the correspondence.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Did you-
I just wanted to say something.
Please.
I want to tell the commissioners, I appreciate you taking action tonight to move this forward and I hope that the delegation sees it the same way. I mean, we are statewide in corrections having difficulties. You know, we actually have an email thread going around between superintendents right now talking about pay and what different people are offering and that type of a thing. And I know that the state prison is now offering a $10,000 bonus, which equates to about $5 an hour.
Interesting.
And I have spoken with my staff quite a bit, you know, in talking about things about what could be done to change this culture of it just being a job where somebody comes in, because it isn't just a job. And if somebody comes in with a mindset of just a job, like you would at say, you know, Burger King or Home Depot or something like that, then you get really bad outcomes because you're giving people safety and security. And so I think most of my staff is, all the staff I've spoken with are in agreement that they feel like this elevates it from just a job to a career again. And where we might have slipped behind. So I do appreciate the commissioners taking a look at this and making decisive action. And I think that if the delegation does go ahead and approve this, that we will see an influx of people from other counties that are going to look at this and go, you know, we kind of we set ourselves apart, and I think we're going to see some applications rolling from those other counties, which is not going to make me real popular with the other superintendents at the next meeting. But that's for them to deal with, not for us.
Well, you're doing right by your department. And we thank you for your candor. And that's why we acted on it.
And I would add, you know, to me, your staff is law enforcement. And should be treated with qualities with regard to people who are in law enforcement. You've got law enforcement on the street, you've got law enforcement people, all on the street. I think if I'm looking at this right, I think we're beginning to recognize that people are and should be rewarded
Yeah, I appreciate it. I use the term, it's a variation on the theme. It's a similar, but different job, and has different stresses, and I think to sit here and try to compare back and forth and who has a tougher job. We could go back and forth all day long, and having done both jobs. I think I'm qualified to sit here and say it's variations on a theme. They have similar challenges and stresses, and they have different challenges and stresses, but I would agree with you, and it's kind of always been, corrections has always kind of taken that backseat to the community law enforcement world. And I think there's a lot of push, especially in the state, and I hear from the other superintendents to achieve that recognition. And I think this is a good move, and put us with the sheriff's department, I think is, it makes a lot of sense.
I have two of my staff here. Would either of you like to say anything?
No, I don't want to say.
So the many agreements with commissioners on this one, we deserve what the proposal says. We need to get that older leadership through there. We have a staff that is young, and it takes a long time to get really good at this job. So if we can pull in a couple of employees from another county with 5 to 10 years experience with this new pay gap, that would add in layers and layers of training and time in building and dealing with inmates, that these guys can now pick a mentor that have had that time and effort getting into the business that we're in. Because right now we're kind of lacking that. We've lost a lot of our middle people. We have a couple of senior guys only on day shift, and we've got younger guys who they look up to. You know, it's tough. So we got to get those other people in. And this pay is what's going to drive people to come to Belknap.
That's our hope and expectation.
So thank you, commissioners.
Superintendent, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming and showing your solidarity with the project. Deborah, do we
Now I
have,
have no other.
we have no other business? Do we have any public comments? Ms. Tessio, please. Come talk to us. Nice to see you. What's new?
Well, I know you're starting to correspond with DES, and I just wanted to be sure that you do understand. I saw one email from Mr. Gallagher saying that they didn't have the right to accept or expend the money. That they would have to go to the governor and executive council. That's half true. They do have the ability to accept the money, and I did remind Mr. Gallagher about it. There's 2 RSAs that have been on the books for years and years, and they state, the first one is that they would construct a dam of some sort at the outlet of Silver Lake. The second one is 482-53, the agency to receive funds. It gives them the ability to receive funds from anyone, state, personal associations, wherever. So what he did kind of reinforce was the fact that the money wasn't in the budget for 2023 because we didn't have the funds. So that's why they have to go to the governor and executive council, because they are the ones who sign the contracts for all the work. But I think there's like a little, it's going to have to be a little give and take here. They cannot write a contract without verifying that they have the funds in their account. The contracts always reference an account that holds the money. So there's going to be a give and take here, I hope.
Well, you know, Pauline, you were with me in Concord and Senator Ives last winter, I think it was.
Yeah.
Late last winter. And what DS essentially told us was, you know, right now, this project is dead in the water. There's zero chance. There's nothing moving legislatively to get this through. But then DES told us, and I think it was Rennie and Mr. Gallagher. But if you underwrite the study and we execute the study based on the findings, your chances improve to 30%.
correct.
I think our chances are better than that.
I agree with you. I do believe they're better. And I have other people, other representatives in the state that have done some dam requests. And they're willing to help us once we have the study. They have said, we really need the study done in order for us to apply for grants and funding. So the study is very important.
I just got a question. I may have misunderstood what you said. Did you say that if we fund study, there's a 30% chance?
That's what Jim Gallagher said in our meeting. Oh, well, don't be alarmed, Commissioner.
I am.
Don't be alarmed. That's not taking into account the fact that we have soon to be executive councilor French. We have executive councilor Joe Kenny, who I've spoken with. I've spoken with the governor, who was receptive to this project. And if the study discloses, as we expect it will, that the dam at the bottom of Silver Lake is a betterment to the Lakes Region watershed, there will be legislative impetus to get this accomplished. That's why I stated to Pauline, I believe he was being a bit conservative in that estimation. Now, I will.
30%, I mean, 50% would worry.
I think we're better than 50%.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with Pauline on several occasions. Mr. O'Connell, Jerry Shaley, all of the folks in the association, and they're all ready, willing, and able to go down and speak before the legislative powers can be. We also have Representative Lang, who could very well be Senator Lang in a month, who has expressed the willingness to be the prime sponsor and get all 18 members of the Gallup County delegation to sign on as co-sponsors of that bill to get that dam funded pending the findings of the study out of the capital fund. So I understand your consternation. We did know there was risk going into this and pledging that money, but I think it's a risk well worth it. I think we can get it done.
And our association is 174 people strong already. We went from 74 people to 174. So there is a lot of backing there, and we are already going to start, once I know that the funds have been transferred, we're going to be contacting all of the executive councils. I've already done the research to find out. Some of our people are seasonal people, but they live in the state, so they will contact their executive council member based on their primary residence. So we'll have quite a few of those council people involved in this right from the get-go.
Thank you, Pauline, and please know, Commissioner, I did make every effort to educate myself on the logistics of this potential project. And I studied the elevations, and I learned how Winnipesaukee flows into Opeechee by a dam, Opeechee flows into Winnisquam by a dam, and then Winnisquam flows by a dam to Silver Lake, which has no dam and a collection of silt at its mouth, which discharges into the Winnipesaukee River, which goes into the Franklin Water Park. So there's no control there during periods of excess water and excess drought. And that is something that despite what Mr. Gallagher may have told us in his estimation of percentages, that is something they really acknowledge, that there should be, of all the dams in the state, and there are a couple of thousand, there should be a dam at the bottom of Silver Lake to better manage the larger bodies of water that are at a high elevation.
Right.
So I understand your alarm. I can't make any promises, but I think this is a project worth pursuing. I think we have a better than 50-50 shot at success if we get the association together, we get our legislative friends together, we work with the governor's office and BBS. I think we have a real shot to do it.
Let me say this. I think you've done an excellent job. I frankly am very concerned about gambling with this money.
I partially share those concerns. Yeah.
I thought there was assurance that if we funded the study, dam would happen. And if that's not there, then I am bothered. That's all I'm saying.
I don't want you to be bothered by it. I understand your consternation. I think we had a detailed, good faith discussion. If I didn't specifically mention, I thought I did, if I didn't, I would certainly apologize for that. I think Commissioner Waring is aware also that it's not a total slam dunk, but I think it's a goal worth pursuing. I think they have a problem there in that lake. And I think to solve the problem in Silver Lake will improve the situation on the larger lakes, Winnipesaukee and Winnisquam notably, and to a lesser extent, Okeechobee.
Right now, there isn't, if we had a water issue, they cannot discharge enough water. We have been lucky that we have not had a hurricane or effective water, but they are aware of
Let
it.
me say, I like the project. That's not my concern. The project is very, very much needed. But unless I'm convinced that it's gonna happen. I mean, I don't want to gamble with this money. If the odds are as long as they may be, but you know, we can't solve that sitting here tonight, so. Yeah, I've said all I need to say, and probably more than I should have said.
No, no. So anyway, that's where we're at, Paul, and so, and that's why Mr. Gallagher, normally when we disperse our funding, Deborah will receive an invoice and she sends a check that corresponds to the invoice. As you mentioned, by our state statute, this situation is a little different,
Yeah,
that he needs to show the money in hand to send out the RFPs. So, but we are, you know, we're going forward with it. I know Hunter has some concerns, and I have all the respect in the world for that. And I share some of those concerns, but I'm seeing the glasses half full at this point, maybe a little better, maybe 2/3.
I see it a little better.
And hopefully Commissioner Taylor will get more comfortable with things. We go forward with them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Seeing no other public comments,
We adjourn.
let's adjourn. Roll call, Mrs.
Oh, you're out 5:50.
Wow, short meeting.
Well done. All for a lot of good stuff.
Yes,